Happy Thursday, everyone. This is Uma Girish, and in today's video, I would love to share with you the 5 ways in which you can support someone who's grieving a loss, whether it is the death of a loved one, a divorce, the end of a relationship, a terminal diagnosis, any kind of loss. If they are struggling with it, what do you say? This is something most of us struggle with. Either you run into them at the grocery store, you haven't called them in a long time, or you bump into them someplace else, and all of a sudden there's this awkward silence. You don't know what to say, they don't know how to respond to you, and you find yourself being completely uncomfortable. It's a situation many of us have run into. So these are some tips that you can use in order to make sure that you don't get into that kind of a situation. The very first thing you can do to support a griever, tip number 1, is listen. Listening means just that. You don't have to speak, you don't have to offer any words of advice or counsel. Just listen. Listen with your ears and listen with your heart. It's so important just to hold the space for the grieving person to be able to share what they want to. In telling the story of loss, they find an immense amount of relief. So there's really nothing for us to do. We don't have to share a story that's worse than what they're telling us as a way to help them feel that their situation is somehow better. On the contrary, when we do something like that, share a story that often seems worse than what they're telling us, they immediately feel invalidated. They don't feel heard. Patrick O'Malley, who's a grief therapist and author, says the very act of listening actually changes the structure of the brain. Isn't that amazing? So all you have to do is listen. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2 is show up. Show up when all the relatives have left, when all the friends have stopped calling, people have gone back to their jobs and their busy lives. Keep showing up. Even if the person who's grieving is not really ready to engage in the way that you would want them to, in the way that you would like them to, just keep showing up. Send cards, send little personalized notes, keep sending text messages, keep leaving voicemails. Let them know that you truly care and that their well-being matters to you. This is what helps them feel like their sorrow is something you see and that you validate. Tip number 3 is serve. When we tell grieving people, let me know if there's anything I can do for you, you are simply lobbing the ball over into their court. They hardly have any energy to think of how you can possibly help them. They are trying so hard to find the energy to take a shower, get in the car, and probably drive to work, do the things they absolutely must. So it really helps them if you can be truly specific about your offer of help. Say things like, I'll walk the dog every evening, or I'll bring dinner every Thursday. I'll come by the weekend and do a load of laundry for you. Those specific offers of help go a really, really long way than just a generalized, call me if you need something from me. Tip number 4, share. So many people don't mention the name of the person who died or who walked out of the relationship. They think that is a landmine they don't want to trigger. If I say the name, that's going to cause a severe emotional reaction. Somehow I'm going to make her feel worse, and that's just something I don't want to do. But to the contrary, the name of a loved one, especially if that person has passed away, is music to the griever's ears. So say their name out loud. Speak about things that you remember about them, things they said or things they did, like favorite sayings. People say all kinds of things, right? When you remember those sayings and you mention them to the bereaved person, it goes a long way in making them feel seen and valued. You can say things like, Bob always made Sunday breakfast and he did such a good job of it. I love the way Mary placed flowers in a vase. She did such a good job of creating beauty in the home. You can mention these things that the loved one did for them, which they're no longer here to do. And just your act of remembering those memories will make your friend or your family member feel really cherished. Tip number 5, be patient. Be patient. Being with someone who's grieving a loss requires oceans of patience, right? It is not your job, it is not my job, it is really nobody else's job to let them know when their grief should be over. Unfortunately, so many people make this mistake. They let someone who's grieving know that they've grieved long enough, they should get out more, they should be with people, blah, 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 blah. And that just doesn't feel good. It is nobody's job to let anyone know when their grief should be over. The other thing is that grieving people tend to be very irritable, sensitive, and touchy. Try not to take that personally. It's not about you, it's just about their personal struggle and where they are in their lives. And the next piece of this is that grieving people also tend to be pretty indecisive. So they may have said something to you to indicate to you that they will go out with you on Wednesday evening, and they may have made this commitment over the weekend, but when Wednesday rolls up, they're in a different frame of mind. They don't want to go out. They're not feeling good. Their energy is not where they'd like it to be. So if they change their mind once too often, try and be patient with them. They are in the season of grief. They're struggling through a very big transition. So these are 5 tips that you can use to support someone who's grieving a loss. Just to recap, number 1, listen. Number 2, show up. Number 3, share. Number 4, serve. And number 5, be patient. I hope these tips have been useful to you. If you found value in them, please would you do me a favor and share them. Click the share button on this video and share them with someone you think may be useful, or tag them. So tag them and they can then watch the video. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to my videos, for sharing them, and for sharing the love. I send you so much love, and I will talk to you again next week.